She signed the contract for a fake wedding, just one day as a bride for cash. But when billionaire Nathan Crawford whispered those words during the ceremony, her blood froze. This wasn't acting anymore. The crystal chandelier above Emma Richardson's head cost more than she would earn in 10 years. She knew this because she had spent the last 3 hours listening to the wedding planner, Diane Sullivan, remind everyone within earshot about every expensive detail of the Ashford-Crawford engagement party at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Emma adjusted the tray of champagne glasses in her hands, careful not to let a single drop spill onto the marble floor that had been imported from Italy specifically for this event. Her feet ached in the required heels, and her face hurt from maintaining the professional smile that event staff were expected to wear like a uniform. "More champagne here," a sharp voice cut through the classical music filling the ballroom. Emma turned to see a woman dripping in jewelry, gesturing impatiently. She navigated through the crowd of designer gowns and tailored suits, invisible to everyone except when they needed something. That was the unspoken rule of working these high society events. Be present but unseen, helpful but forgettable. "Thank you," the woman said without looking at her, already turning back to her conversation about summer homes and yacht clubs. Emma had been working for Premier Events Management for almost 2 years, ever since her mother's medical bills had started piling up faster than her modest salary as a museum assistant could cover. The event company paid better, even if it meant spending her weekends serving people who treated her like furniture. "Emma!" Diane's voice crackled through the small earpiece all staff members wore. "Mr. Crawford needs assistance in the West Lounge. Immediately." Emma's stomach tightened. Nathan Crawford. She had seen him from across the ballroom earlier. Impossible to miss, really. He commanded attention the way fire commands oxygen, drawing every eye in the room whether people wanted to look or not. The host of the evening, the groom-to-be, the man whose family name was on half the buildings in the city. She made her way to the West Lounge, a smaller room adjacent to the main ballroom where the evening's most important guests could have private conversations away from the crowd. As she approached, she could hear raised voices. "This is unacceptable." Nathan Crawford's voice carried the kind of authority that came from never being told no. "I specifically requested the 47 Chateau Margaux, not this mediocre substitute." Emma entered to find Nathan standing with Marcus Bennett, his attorney, and 2 other men in expensive suits. Nathan was holding a wine glass as if it personally offended him. "Sir, I apologize for the confusion," Emma began, her professional voice steady despite her nervousness. "Let me check with our sommelier about—" "I don't need you to check," Nathan interrupted, not even looking at her. "I need you to fix it. Do you understand the difference?" Emma felt heat rising to her cheeks, but kept her expression neutral. "Of course, sir. I'll have the correct wine brought immediately." "See that you do." Nathan dismissed her with a wave of his hand, already returning to his conversation as if she had ceased to exist. As Emma turned to leave, her foot caught on the edge of an ornate rug. The tray in her hands tilted, and in horrifying slow motion, she watched as a single champagne glass slid off the edge. She lunged to catch it, her body twisting awkwardly, but momentum had already won. The glass shattered against the marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo like a gunshot in the sudden silence. "Are you serious right now?" Nathan's voice was ice. Emma dropped to her knees immediately, trying to gather the glass shards with shaking hands. "I'm so sorry, I'll clean this up right away." "Stop," Nathan commanded. "Just stop. Look at me." Emma slowly raised her eyes, still kneeling among the broken glass, feeling the humiliation burn through her entire body. Nathan was looking directly at her for the first time, and his expression was a mixture of irritation and something that might have been contempt. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma Richardson, sir." "Well, Emma Richardson, do you have any idea how much this event cost? How many details had to be perfect? And you can't even walk across a room without destroying property?" "Sir, I apologize. It was an accident. Accidents," Nathan cut her off, "are what happens when people who lack competence are put in positions they can't handle. Marcus, make a note. I want this agency to know that this level of incompetence is unacceptable." Emma felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall. She had dealt with difficult clients before, had endured condescending comments and dismissive attitudes. But something about Nathan Crawford's casual cruelty, the way he spoke about her as if she wasn't even human, struck deeper than usual. "Mr. Crawford," Marcus said quietly, "perhaps we should return to the party. Victoria is looking for you." At the mention of his fiancée's name, Nathan's expression shifted slightly. "Fine. Get someone competent to clean this mess." He walked past Emma without another glance, his expensive shoes crunching over the broken glass as if it were beneath his notice to avoid it. Emma remained on the floor for a moment after they left, struggling to compose herself. This was her life now, kneeling on marble floors, cleaning up messes for people who would never see her as anything more than hired help. The weight of it all pressed down on her shoulders. The medical bills, the second job, the constant exhaustion, the knowledge that no matter how hard she worked, she would never be anything but invisible to people like Nathan Crawford. "Emma, you okay?" It was James, another server and one of the few people at these events who treated her like a human being. "I'm fine," she lied, standing up carefully. "Just clumsy." "That guy's a piece of work," James muttered, helping her pick up the larger shards. "Rich doesn't mean decent, that's for sure." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and aching feet. Emma watched from the sidelines as Nathan Crawford and Victoria Ashford glided across the dance floor, the perfect couple celebrated by the city's elite. Victoria was everything Emma would never be. Polished, privileged, born into a world where champagne glasses cost more than monthly rent. The party finally ended near midnight. As Emma helped break down the event, stacking chairs and collecting forgotten items, Diane approached with an unusual expression on her face. "Emma, Mr. Crawford's attorney wants to speak with you before you leave." Emma's stomach dropped. This was it. She was going to be fired over a broken glass. The complaint would go to her agency, and they would let her go. No more extra income. No way to cover her mother's treatments. Marcus Bennett was waiting in one of the now empty side rooms. He gestured for her to sit, which somehow made her more nervous. "Ms. Richardson, I'll get straight to the point. My client has a proposition for you." Emma blinked. "I don't understand." "Mr. Crawford's engagement to Ms. Ashford has encountered complications, legal complications that require a specific solution. He needs a temporary wife." The words didn't make sense at first. Emma stared at Marcus, waiting for the punchline. "I'm sorry, what?" "A contract marriage. Entirely legal, entirely temporary. You would marry Mr. Crawford, maintain the appearance of a genuine relationship for a specified period, and then divorce quietly. In return, you would receive significant compensation." Emma laughed. She couldn't help it. "This is a joke, right? After tonight, after how he treated me, you think I would—" $500,000, Marcus said calmly. The number hit Emma like a physical blow. $500,000. Enough to cover her mother's treatments, pay off the medical debt, maybe even keep their house from being foreclosed. Enough to change everything. "Why me?" she whispered. "Mr. Crawford has his reasons. The specifics aren't important. What matters is whether you're interested in discussing terms." Emma's mind raced. This had to be illegal, or at minimum, completely insane. But $500,000. Her mother's face flashed through her mind. The way she had looked during the last hospital visit. The pain she tried to hide. The apologies she couldn't stop making for being sick, for being expensive, for being a burden. "I need time to think about it," Emma said. "You have until tomorrow morning. Mr. Crawford is not a patient man." Marcus handed her a business card. "Call this number with your decision." Emma left the Grand Meridian Hotel at nearly 1 in the morning, the business card burning a hole in her pocket. The night air was cold, and the city streets were mostly empty. She walked to the bus stop since she couldn't afford parking in this neighborhood and waited for the late-night route that would take her home. On the bus, surrounded by other night shift workers and insomniacs, Emma pulled out her phone. She had 3 missed calls from the hospital. Her hands shook as she dialed voicemail. "Ms. Richardson, this is Riverside General Hospital calling about your mother, Sarah Richardson. We need to discuss her treatment plan and some outstanding billing issues. Please call us back as soon as possible." Emma closed her eyes against the tears that finally came. She was so tired. Tired of working 2 jobs. Tired of watching her mother suffer. Tired of feeling helpless and small and invisible. The business card was still in her hand. She looked at it under the harsh bus lighting. Marcus Bennett, attorney at law, Crawford Enterprises. $500,000 for pretending to be married to a man who treated her like dirt. It was insane. It was probably illegal. It was definitely wrong on every level. But when Emma thought about her mother's medical bills, about the foreclosure notice on their house, about the way Nathan Crawford had looked at her like she was nothing, maybe this was her chance to be something more than invisible. Maybe this was her chance to save the one person who had always seen her, always loved her, always believed she was worth something. Emma pulled out her phone and stared at Marcus Bennett's number until the bus reached her stop. She didn't call, not yet, but she didn't delete the number either. When she finally got home to the small apartment she shared with her mother, she found Sarah asleep in the worn armchair, the television providing flickering light. Medical bills were stacked on the coffee table, each one stamped with increasingly threatening red letters. Emma covered her mother with a blanket and picked up the bills. The total amount was staggering, growing every day with interest and late fees. It would take her 10 years to pay this off, maybe more, and by then, it might be too late. She looked at Marcus Bennett's business card one more time. Tomorrow morning, she would make a decision that would change her life forever. She just didn't know yet if it would save her or destroy her. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat at the small kitchen table, watching the sunrise through the window of their apartment. Marcus Bennett's business card positioned directly in front of her like a test she hadn't studied for. At 7 in the morning, she made the call. "Mr. Bennett? This is Emma Richardson. I'll do it." There was a pause on the other end, as if he had expected her to refuse. "I see. Can you be at Crawford Tower at 9 this morning? We'll need to discuss the contract details. I have work at... Mr. Crawford will compensate you for any lost wages. 9th floor, ask for me at reception." The line went dead before Emma could respond. 2 hours later, Emma stood in front of Crawford Tower, a gleaming structure of glass and steel that pierced the sky like a sword. She had walked past this building hundreds of times, never imagining she would actually enter it. Buildings like this weren't meant for people like her. The lobby was all marble and minimalist luxury, the kind of space designed to make visitors feel small. Emma approached the reception desk where a woman with a practiced smile greeted her. "Emma Richardson for Marcus Bennett," Emma said, hating how her voice sounded uncertain. "9th floor. You're expected." The elevator ride felt like ascending to another world. When the doors opened, Marcus was waiting, looking exactly as composed as he had the night before. "Ms. Richardson, thank you for coming. Follow me." He led her through a corridor of glass-walled conference rooms and executive offices until they reached a set of double doors at the end of the hall. Marcus knocked once and entered without waiting for a response. The office beyond was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city that made Emma dizzy. And behind a desk that looked carved from a single piece of black wood sat Nathan Crawford. He looked up when they entered, and Emma felt that same twist in her stomach from the night before. In daylight, in his own domain, Nathan Crawford was even more intimidating. There was something predatory about the way he watched her cross the room. "Sit," Nathan said, not bothering with pleasantries. Emma sat in one of the chairs facing his desk. Marcus took the other. "I assume Marcus explained the situation?" Nathan asked. "He said you need a temporary wife," Emma replied, trying to keep her voice steady. He didn't explain why. Nathan leaned back in his chair, studying her with an expression she couldn't read. "The details are not your concern. What matters is whether you can fulfill the requirements of the contract." "I think I deserve to know what I'm agreeing to," Emma said, surprising herself with her boldness. Something flickered in Nathan's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. "Marcus, show her the contract." Marcus slid a thick document across the desk. Emma picked it up, scanning the dense legal language that might as well have been written in another language. "Let me simplify it for you," Nathan said. "You will marry me in a private ceremony. You will live in my home and maintain the appearance of a genuine marriage for 6 months. You will attend public events with me, present yourself as my wife, and follow specific behavioral guidelines outlined in the contract. After 6 months, we divorce quietly. You receive $500,000, split into 2 payments, half upon marriage, half upon divorce." Emma's hands trembled slightly as she held the contract. "Why? Why do you need to be married?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "My father's will contains a clause that requires me to be married before I can access certain assets," and assume full control of Crawford Enterprises. Victoria and I were supposed to marry within the month, but that arrangement fell through. What happened? That's none of your business, Nathan said sharply. What matters is that I need a wife, and I need one quickly. You need money. This is a simple transaction. Emma looked down at the contract again. $500,000. Half up front. That's $250,000 deposited into your account the day we marry. Enough to solve your immediate financial problems, I believe. Emma's head snapped up. How do you know about— I know everything about you, Ms. Richardson, Nathan interrupted. Sarah Richardson, your mother. Stage 4 illness. Medical bills exceeding $300,000. Foreclosure proceedings on your family home. 2 jobs barely covering basic expenses. You're drowning, and I'm offering you a life raft. The only question is whether you're smart enough to take it. The clinical way he recited her life's disasters made Emma feel exposed, vulnerable. He had investigated her, reduced her entire existence to a list of financial failures. Why me? Emma asked again. You could marry anyone. Someone from your own world who would actually want— I don't want someone from my world, Nathan said. I want someone who understands this is business. Someone who won't develop unrealistic expectations. Someone who knows their place. The words stung, but Emma couldn't deny their truth. She did know her place. It was exactly where it had always been, beneath people like Nathan Crawford. There are other stipulations, Marcus interjected, flipping to a marked page in the contract. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement. You cannot tell anyone the true nature of your marriage. As far as the world is concerned, this is a genuine love match. You will be coached on appropriate behavior, speech, and etiquette for your new position. You will have a dedicated stylist, security detail, and public relations team. This is insane, Emma whispered. This is business, Nathan corrected. And you have 30 minutes to decide. Sign the contract or walk away and return to your impossible debt and dying mother. The cruelty of the statement took Emma's breath away. Nathan delivered it without emotion, as if he were discussing stock prices rather than her mother's life. You're unbelievable, Emma said, anger finally breaking through her shock. Do you talk about everyone this way? Do you think having money gives you the right to— Money gives me options, Nathan interrupted. Options you don't have. I'm offering you one. Take it or leave it, but stop wasting my time with moral outrage. We both know you're going to sign. Emma wanted to throw the contract in his face, wanted to tell him what kind of person she thought he was, wanted to walk out of this office with her dignity intact. But then she thought about her mother, about the hospital calling with urgent billing issues, about the foreclosure notice, about the look in her mother's eyes when she apologized for being sick, for costing too much, for ruining Emma's life. Emma picked up the pen Marcus offered. I need guarantees, she said. The money goes to my mother's medical care first. I want that in the contract. Done, Nathan said without hesitation. And I want to see her. I won't disappear from her life for 6 months. Reasonable. We'll arrange supervised visits that maintain the fiction of our marriage. I won't lie about who I am. I'll play the role of your wife, but I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. Nathan's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. We'll see about that. Anything else? Emma looked at the contract one more time. When would this happen? The ceremony is scheduled for the end of this week. This week? Emma nearly dropped the pen. That's impossible. I need time to— You need $250,000, Nathan said flatly, which you'll have the moment you sign that marriage license. Everything has already been arranged. The ceremony will be small, private, immediate. You just need to show up and say 2 words. Emma felt the walls closing in. This was really happening. In less than a week, she would be married to Nathan Crawford, a man who treated her with open contempt, who saw her as nothing more than a contract employee filling a temporary position. But she would also have enough money to save her mother's life. There's one more thing you should know, Marcus said carefully. The marriage must appear genuine. That means physical proximity, public displays of affection when appropriate, and maintaining the illusion of a romantic relationship. You want me to pretend I love him, Emma said. I want you to pretend you're married to him, Marcus corrected. Love is optional. Convincing performance is not. Nathan stood, signaling the meeting was nearing its end. You have 15 minutes left to decide, Ms. Richardson. I have other appointments. Emma looked at the signature line at the bottom of the contract. Everything came down to this moment. signing her name and stepping into a completely different life, or walking away and watching her mother die under the weight of medical debt. It wasn't really a choice at all. Emma signed. Nathan took the contract without comment, his fingers brushing hers for a brief moment. His skin was cold. "Welcome to the family, Ms. Richardson," he said with obvious irony. "Marcus will handle the details. You'll move into my home in 3 days. A stylist will meet with you tomorrow to prepare you for public appearances. And Emma?" She looked up at the sound of her first name, the first time he had used it. "Don't make me regret this decision." Emma left Crawford Tower in a daze. She had just sold 6 months of her life to a man who despised her. She had agreed to marry someone who saw her as nothing more than a hired actress playing a role. But when she checked her phone an hour later and saw a text from Marcus confirming that $100,000 had been transferred to her account as an advance on the first payment, Emma knew she had made the only choice she could. She went straight to Riverside General Hospital. The financial services office was familiar territory by now. The woman behind the desk, Patricia, looked up with a mixture of sympathy and resignation when Emma approached. "Ms. Richardson, I was just about to call you. We need to discuss—" "I'm here to pay," Emma interrupted. Patricia blinked. "I'm sorry. My mother's medical bills. All of them. I want to pay everything that's currently outstanding." Emma watched Patricia's expression change from confusion to shock as she pulled up the account and saw the payment going through. $75,000, wiping out months of accumulated debt in seconds. "Ms. Richardson, How did you— Can I see my mother now?" Emma asked, not answering the unspoken question. Sarah Richardson was in her usual room on the 4th floor. She looked so small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical indifference. But when she saw Emma, her face lit up with a smile that made every terrible decision worth it. "Emma, sweetheart, you didn't have to come. I know you're working. I took the day off," Emma said, pulling a chair close to the bed. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "You look strange." Emma took her mother's hand, feeling the fragility of bones beneath papery skin. "I met someone. We're getting married." Sarah's eyes went wide. "What?" "Emma, you've never mentioned anyone. I don't understand." "It happened very quickly," Emma said, the lies coming easier than she expected. "His name is Nathan. Nathan Crawford." "Crawford? The Crawford family?" "Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but—" Emma took a breath. "I love him, Mom, and I don't want you to worry about money anymore. Everything is going to be okay now." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Emma, you found someone. You found happiness. I've been so worried about you, working yourself to exhaustion, sacrificing everything for me." "Don't," Emma said firmly. "You're my mother. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you." As Emma sat with her mother, holding her hand and telling elaborately constructed lies about a whirlwind romance that didn't exist, she felt the full weight of what she had done. She had just signed away 6 months of her life. She had agreed to live with a man who treated her like hired help. She had entered into a fraud that could destroy her if anyone discovered the truth. But her mother was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in months, and maybe that was worth any price. Emma left the hospital as the sun was setting, her phone already buzzing with messages from Marcus about tomorrow's appointments: stylist, etiquette coach, security briefing. Her life as Emma Richardson, invisible event worker, was over. In 3 days, she would become Emma Crawford. The thought terrified her, but when she checked her bank account and saw the money that would save her mother's life, Emma knew she would walk through fire if that's what it took, even if the fire had a name and it was Nathan Crawford. 3 days had never felt so long and so short at the same time. Emma spent those days trapped in a whirlwind of preparations that felt like being transformed into someone else entirely. The morning after signing the contract, a stylist named Gabriel arrived at Emma's modest apartment with an entourage of assistants carrying garment bags and makeup cases that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. Gabriel took one sweeping look at Emma's small closet, the practical work clothes, the clearance rack finds, the shoes worn down at the heels, and actually winced. "Honey, we have our work cut out for us," she said, not unkindly. "When you step out as Mrs. Nathan Crawford, you can't look like you wandered in from a clearance sale. Everything has to scream old money, even if you've never seen old money in your life. Within hours, Emma was standing on a fitting platform in her own living room, being measured and pinned into clothes she couldn't even pronounce. Valentino, Givenchy, Dior. Each piece cost what Emma used to make in a month, and Gabrielle ordered dozens of them as casually as someone picking up groceries. "The wedding dress is the crown jewel," Gabrielle explained as she showed Emma photographs of 3 different options. Nathan selected this one himself. The dress in the photo took Emma's breath away. It was a masterpiece of silk and delicate lace, elegant without being ostentatious, romantic without being frivolous. The kind of dress that belonged in magazines, not on someone like her. "He picked this out?" Emma asked, surprised Nathan had bothered with such a personal detail. "Don't read too much into it," Gabrielle warned gently. "Men like Nathan Crawford understand presentation. This dress photographs well, which is all that matters for what you're doing." The reminder stung more than Emma wanted to admit. The dress fitting itself was surreal. Emma stood in front of a 3-way mirror while seamstresses made minute adjustments, transforming the already perfect dress into something that fit her like it had been designed specifically for her body. The woman staring back from the mirrors looked like a stranger. Elegant, expensive, completely unlike the Emma Richardson who had spent the last 2 years serving champagne to people who never looked at her face. "You're going to be beautiful," Gabrielle said softly, standing behind Emma and meeting her eyes in the mirror. "But you need to understand something. When you walk into that ceremony, you're not Emma Richardson anymore. You're Mrs. Nathan Crawford. That means everything changes. How you stand, how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you convince the world that you belong in that dress and beside that man." "It's just a contract," Emma murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. Gabrielle's expression in the mirror was knowing. "Honey, nothing about Nathan Crawford is just anything. That man doesn't do casual, doesn't do simple, doesn't do halfway. If you're going to survive 6 months as his wife, you better start believing your own performance. Because I guarantee you, everyone else will be looking for cracks." The etiquette coach, a stern woman named Judith who carried herself like disappointed royalty, was even less sympathetic to Emma's inexperience. She arrived the next morning with thick binders full of social protocols that Emma was expected to memorize. "You hold a champagne glass by the stem, never the bowl," Judith corrected for the 3rd time, tapping Emma's hand sharply with a pen. "You make eye contact for exactly 3 seconds during introductions. Any less is dismissive, any more is aggressive. You never discuss money, politics, or personal matters with strangers. You deflect personal questions with charm and redirect conversations toward safe topics." "What counts as safe topics?" Emma asked, feeling overwhelmed. "The weather, travel destinations, art exhibitions, charity work. Nothing with real substance or opinion. Rich people don't have genuine conversations at parties, dear. They perform pleasantries. Master the performance." Hour after hour, Judith drilled Emma on which fork to use for which course, how to make small talk with wealthy strangers without revealing her complete lack of connection to their world, and the apparently crucial difference between a cocktail smile and a charity gala smile. "You're too expressive," Judith said after their second session, studying Emma's face with clinical detachment. "Your emotions show on your face like a billboard. Rich people don't show real feeling in public. Everything is controlled, measured, performed. Practice in the mirror until hiding your true reactions becomes as natural as breathing." Emma wanted to argue that pretending not to feel things wasn't natural at all, that suppressing genuine emotion was a special kind of death, but she kept quiet. This was the role she had agreed to play, and apparently that role required killing off pieces of herself until only the acceptable performance remained. The hardest part was lying to her mother. Sarah called every single day, her voice bright with excitement that made Emma's guilt multiply exponentially. "Where did you meet? How did he propose? Tell me everything about the ceremony. Can I come? Please tell me I can see my daughter get married." That last question shattered Emma's heart into smaller pieces each time her mother asked it. "It's going to be very small, Mom," Emma lied, hating herself with every word. "Nathan's father passed away recently and the family wants to keep things intimate, just immediate family. But I promise we'll have a celebration you can attend once you're feeling stronger, once the treatments are working better." The pause on the other end of the line was filled with Sarah's attempt to hide disappointment. "I understand, sweetheart. I just wish I could see you in your dress. My baby girl getting married and I can't even be there. Emma had taken a photo of herself during the final dress fitting, standing in front of those mirrors, looking like someone from a completely different world. She sent it to her mother, who responded within seconds with tear-filled emojis and messages about how beautiful Emma looked, how proud she was, how everything was finally working out the way it should. The guilt sat heavy in Emma's chest like a physical weight. Every lie made it worse, made the debt she owed her mother, not financial but moral, grow larger and more unpayable. On the morning of the wedding, Emma woke up in her apartment for what would be the last time. By evening, she would be living in Nathan's penthouse, sleeping under his roof, playing the role of his wife every single day. The reality of what she was doing hit her all at once, and she spent 20 minutes locked in the bathroom, trying to breathe through the panic attack that threatened to drown her. A car arrived at 9, not just any car, but a luxury vehicle with a professional driver who opened doors and called her Mrs. Crawford, even though the ceremony hadn't happened yet. The drive took them out of the city and into the countryside where the truly wealthy lived, where estates had names instead of addresses, and privacy was measured in acres. The Ashford estate was breathtaking in a way that felt almost aggressive. Sprawling gardens that required a full-time staff to maintain. A mansion that looked transplanted from European aristocracy, and tucked into the grounds, a private chapel that somehow managed to be both intimate and impossibly grand. Gabriel was waiting in an elegant preparation room, along with a team of hair and makeup artists, who descended on Emma with the focused intensity of surgeons preparing for a critical operation. "Remember," Gabriel said as she made final adjustments to Emma's veil, her hands gentle but her voice firm. "This isn't just about looking beautiful. Anyone can look beautiful with enough money and skilled artists. This is about looking like you belong next to Nathan Crawford, like you were born for this world, like marrying a billionaire is exactly where your life was always heading. Can you do that?" Emma stared at her reflection in the ornate mirror. The woman looking back was a complete stranger, polished to impossible perfection, elegant in ways Emma had never imagined she could be, expensive in every detail from her professionally styled hair to the designer shoes hidden under her dress. Everything about her appearance screamed wealth and privilege she had never possessed. "What if I can't do this?" Emma whispered, voicing the fear that had been growing since she signed that contract. "What if everyone can tell I'm faking it?" Gabriel met her eyes in the mirror, with unexpected compassion. "Then you fake it harder, honey. Confidence isn't something you feel. It's something you perform until the performance becomes real. And right now, you need to give the performance of your life." "Too late for doubts now," one of the makeup artists added with a sympathetic smile. "The groom is waiting." The ceremony was scheduled for noon in the estate's private chapel. As Emma was led through the hallways toward the entrance, she could see the small gathering through the partially open doors, maybe 20 people total, all dressed in the kind of elegant formality that spoke of old money and older traditions. Marcus was there, standing near the front with his lawyer's posture and unreadable expression. Several faces Emma didn't recognize. Business associates probably, people who needed to witness this marriage to make it legally and socially legitimate, for whatever clause in Nathan's father's will required him to be married. And at the altar, standing with his back straight and his hands clasped in front of him, was Nathan Crawford. He looked devastatingly handsome in his perfectly tailored suit, every inch the powerful billionaire who commanded boardrooms and built empires. The afternoon light streaming through the chapel's stained glass windows caught the angles of his face, and Emma hated that she noticed, hated that her heart did something complicated and unwanted when his eyes found hers across the chapel. His expression was completely unreadable. No warmth, no emotion, just that same cold assessment she remembered from their first meeting. This was a business transaction for him, nothing more, and his face made that abundantly clear. "This is it," Gabrielle whispered, giving Emma's hand one final squeeze. "Remember everything we practiced. You're not just a bride. You're his bride. Make them believe it." The music began. Classical, elegant, expensive. Emma forced herself to take that first step. The walk down the aisle felt like it lasted forever and ended too soon all at once. Every eye in the chapel turned toward her, judging, evaluating, wondering. Who is she? Where did she come from? How did she capture Nathan Crawford's interest when women far more suitable have tried and failed? Emma kept her chin up, her shoulders back, her expression serene, exactly as Judith had drilled into her during endless practice sessions. Don't look nervous. Don't look overwhelmed. Look like you belong here. Like walking toward a billionaire groom in a chapel full of strangers is the most natural thing in the world. When she reached the altar, Nathan extended his hand. Emma took it, feeling that same cold, impersonal touch she remembered from when she signed the contract. His fingers closed around hers firmly, a grip that spoke of possession rather than affection. The officiant began speaking, standard wedding ceremony language about love and commitment and forever, about two souls joining as one, about the sacred bond of marriage. Emma barely heard the words. Her entire focus was on maintaining her composure, on not letting anyone see the terror beneath her carefully constructed calm. Marriage is a sacred bond, the officiant intoned, his voice carrying through the quiet chapel, built on trust, honesty, and the commitment to face life's challenges together as partners united in purpose and devotion. Emma felt Nathan's hand tighten almost imperceptibly around hers. Was he thinking the same thing she was? That every word the officiant spoke was a mockery of what they were actually doing? That they were standing in a house of worship, in front of witnesses, making sacred vows that were nothing but lies wrapped in legal contracts? Do you, Nathan Crawford, take Emma Richardson to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. His voice was steady, firm, emotionless, a business contract being finalized, nothing more. And do you, Emma Richardson, take Nathan Crawford to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? This was it. The point of absolute no return. Once she said those words, she was legally bound to this man. This stranger who treated her with contempt. This billionaire who saw her as nothing more than a contract employee filling a temporary position in his life. Emma thought about her mother in that hospital bed, thought about the medical bills that were now paid, thought about the 6 months that stood between her and freedom. I do, Emma said, and was surprised her voice came out clear and steady instead of shaking with the fear that filled every cell of her body. Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The officiant smiled warmly, completely unaware of the fraud being perpetrated in his chapel. You may kiss the bride. Nathan turned to face Emma fully, and for just one moment, so brief she might have imagined it, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, determination, second thoughts. She couldn't tell before it vanished, replaced by that same cold mask he always wore. Then he stepped closer, one hand coming up to cup her face with unexpected gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. His touch was warm despite his cold demeanor, and Emma's breath caught as he leaned in. The kiss was brief, professional, choreographed for an audience that needed to believe this was real. His lips were soft against hers but completely devoid of emotion. A performance of intimacy with none of the substance. It lasted exactly long enough to be convincing, and not a second more. But as Nathan pulled back, his lips still inches from hers, he whispered something so quietly that only Emma could hear. Something that made her blood turn to ice in her veins. Don't think for a second that saying I do changes anything between us. This is still just a contract, and you're still just an employee. Nothing will be cancelled, but nothing is real either. Emma's eyes widened in shock, her carefully maintained composure cracking for just a moment. But before she could respond, Nathan was already turning away, taking her hand, and facing the small audience with a smile that looked genuine to everyone except Emma, who now knew exactly how little that smile meant. Applause filled the chapel. People stood, smiling, celebrating a union that was nothing but an elaborate lie. Emma felt like she was watching someone else's life unfold, like she had somehow stepped outside her own body and was observing this stranger in a wedding dress, play-acting at being happy while her new husband reminded her that she meant nothing to him. As they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Emma's hand trapped in Nathan's cold grip, she caught sight of a woman in the third row, beautiful, elegant, watching them with an expression Emma couldn't quite read, something knowing, almost amused. Victoria Ashford, the woman Nathan was supposed to marry, the woman who had been replaced by Emma. And from the look on Victoria's face, she knew something. Emma was certain of it. This was going to be a disaster. Emma could feel it in her bones, in the way Nathan's hand gripped hers just a fraction too tightly, in the way Victoria's eyes followed them as they passed, in the weight of lies that already felt too heavy to carry for even one day, let alone 6 months. But it was too late now. The vows had been said. The contract had been fulfilled. Emma was Mrs. Nathan Crawford, for better or worse. And based on Nathan's whispered words during their first kiss as husband and wife, Emma was beginning to understand that worse hadn't even begun yet. The reception unfolded in the estate's garden like a carefully orchestrated performance. Emma stood beside Nathan under strings of lights that turned the afternoon into something magical, smiling on command while strangers congratulated them on a love story that didn't exist. "You're doing well," Marcus said quietly when he approached with champagne. "Very convincing." "That's what I'm being paid for," Emma replied, the words tasting bitter. "There's something you should know." Marcus lowered his voice further. "Victoria is here." Emma's carefully maintained smile faltered. Why would his ex-fiancée be at our wedding? The Ashfords and Crawfords have been connected for generations. Her absence would have raised more questions than her presence. Before Emma could respond, a voice cut through the garden noise like crystal breaking. "The blushing bride. We simply must talk." Emma turned to find Victoria Ashford approaching, elegant and predatory in equal measure. Up close, she was even more beautiful, the kind of beauty that came from generations of excellent genetics and expensive maintenance. "Victoria," Nathan said, his hand finding Emma's waist in a gesture that would look protective to observers. "Thank you for coming. I wouldn't have missed it for the world." Victoria's smile was sharp. "Emma, is it? What a quaint name. Tell me, how exactly did you meet my Nathan?" "He's not your Nathan anymore," Emma said before she could stop herself. Victoria's laugh was genuine. "Oh, I like her. She has claws. Nathan, wherever did you find this one?" "At a charity event," Nathan replied smoothly, sticking to their rehearsed story. "Emma was volunteering and I was immediately captivated." How romantic. Victoria's eyes never left Emma's face. And after such a brief courtship, you just knew she was the one. How unlike you, Nathan. You've always been so methodical about major decisions. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Victoria knew something was off. "When you know," Emma said, channeling every etiquette lesson. "Some things don't require long deliberation." "Indeed." Victoria took a slow sip of champagne. "Well, I hope you're prepared for everything that comes with being Mrs. Crawford. It's not as simple as pretty dresses and garden parties. There are expectations, responsibilities, eyes watching your every move, waiting for you to prove you don't belong." "Good thing I do belong, then," Emma replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Victoria's smile turned almost sympathetic. "We'll see, won't we? Enjoy your evening, newlyweds. Something tells me things are about to get very interesting." She walked away, leaving Emma's heart pounding. "That was a threat," Emma whispered to Nathan. "That was Victoria being Victoria," he replied, but his jaw was tight. "Ignore her." The rest of the reception passed in a blur of forced smiles and hollow congratulations. When they finally made their exit through a shower of flower petals, Emma felt exhausted down to her bones. The luxury car waiting for them would take them to Nathan's penthouse, her new home. The thought made Emma's stomach turn. The moment the car door closed and they were alone, Nathan's entire demeanor changed. The warmth evaporated like it had never existed. "That went well enough," he said, already focused on his phone. No one seemed suspicious. Emma stared at him in disbelief. "Victoria knows something's wrong. Victoria suspects. There's a difference. Without proof, her suspicions are meaningless. And if she finds proof, she won't." Nathan's tone left no room for argument. "We'll be too convincing." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of Crawford Tower. When the private elevator doors opened directly into Nathan's home, Emma's breath caught despite herself. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic city views that made her dizzy. Everything was expensive, modern, untouched by anything resembling actual human warmth. The furniture looked like art installations. The kitchen gleamed with appliances Emma didn't know how to use. "Your room is down that hall," Nathan said, gesturing left. "I'm on the opposite side. We share common areas. Don't leave the building without informing Marcus first." "So I'm a prisoner now? You're a wife. Wives of men in my position don't wander the city unescorted. It's not safe." "Nothing about this is safe," Emma muttered. Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. "I have calls to make. We'll discuss household arrangements tomorrow." He disappeared into his wing, leaving Emma alone in the massive space that was supposedly her home now. Emma walked to the windows, looking out at the city sprawling below. Somewhere down there was her real life, her mother, her old apartment, everything that made sense. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "How is married life, sweetheart? Are you happy?" Emma typed back, "It's perfect, Mom. Everything I dreamed of." Another lie added to the mountain. Before she could put her phone away, another message appeared. Unknown number. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Crawford. We should talk soon. Victoria." Emma's blood ran cold. Victoria wanted to talk. This couldn't be good. She was still staring at the message when Nathan's voice made her jump. "We have a problem." Emma turned to find him standing there, his phone in hand, his expression darker than she'd ever seen. "What kind of problem?" "My father's attorney just called. There's a formal challenge to the will. Someone is claiming our marriage is fraudulent." Emma felt the floor tilt beneath her. "What? How would anyone—" "I don't know yet. But if this goes to court, if they investigate our relationship thoroughly—" Nathan's eyes bore into hers. "We need to be more convincing. The separate wings won't work. We need to look like a real married couple." "No," Emma said immediately. "That wasn't the deal. You said separate spaces. The deal just changed." Nathan cut her off. "Unless you want to explain to a judge why your sudden marriage to a billionaire is actually a 6-month employment contract." Emma felt panic rising. "This is exactly what you said wouldn't happen. You said it was simple, controlled, and someone made it complicated." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of real frustration she'd seen from him. "Tomorrow morning there's a magazine interview. Human interest piece about our whirlwind romance. You'll tell our story perfectly or we both lose everything." "I can't." "You can, and you will." Nathan's voice was steel. "Because the alternative is prison for fraud." Emma sank onto the nearest chair, her wedding dress pooling around her like a beautiful trap. She had thought the ceremony would be the hard part. She had been catastrophically wrong. The real nightmare was just beginning. Emma barely slept that night. She lay in the enormous bed in her new room, staring at the ceiling, Nathan's whispered words from the ceremony playing on repeat in her mind. By the time dawn broke over the city, she had convinced herself this entire plan was going to collapse spectacularly. At 7 in the morning, there was a knock on her door. Gabrielle entered with coffee and a garment bag. "The interview is at 9. Magazine wants the perfect newlywed couple story." Gabrielle studied Emma's face. "You look exhausted." "I didn't sleep much." "Well, we'll fix that with makeup." "But Emma," Gabrielle's voice softened. "Whatever happened last night, whatever Nathan said or didn't say, you need to put it aside for the next few hours. This interview determines whether the world believes your marriage or tears it apart looking for the truth." 2 hours later, Emma sat beside Nathan on an elegant sofa in the penthouse living room, facing Rachel Morrison from Metropolitan Life magazine. A photographer circled them, capturing candid moments that were anything but. "So tell me," Rachel said with practiced warmth, "how did you two meet? The whole city is dying to know the story." Nathan's hand found Emma's, his fingers interlacing with hers in a gesture that would photograph beautifully. To anyone watching, it looked natural, affectionate. Only Emma could feel how cold his touch actually was. "It was at the Children's Hospital Charity Gala," Nathan began, the lie flowing smoothly. "Emma was volunteering at the registration table. I was running late, frustrated with my schedule, and she looked up at me with this smile that just stopped everything." Emma picked up the story, surprised by how easily her own lies came. He was kind when he didn't have to be. "Asked about my work, actually listened when I talked about how much the hospital meant to me. Most people at those events look right through volunteers." "And the proposal?" Rachel leaned forward eagerly. "I heard it was incredibly romantic." "I didn't want to wait," Nathan said, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes that almost looked genuine. When you know someone is extraordinary, you don't risk losing them by being cautious. The word extraordinary hung in the air. Emma knew it was performance, but something about the way Nathan said it made her breath catch. Emma, how does it feel going from a modest background to suddenly being one of the wealthiest women in the country? The question was a trap, and Emma knew it. Answer wrong and she'd sound like a gold digger. Answer right and she'd sound rehearsed. Honestly, terrifying, Emma said, deciding on truth wrapped in fiction. I didn't fall in love with Nathan's money. I fell in love with the person who sees me as an equal, despite the difference in our backgrounds. The wealth is just circumstance. What matters is that we see value in each other that has nothing to do with bank accounts. Rachel's eyes lit up. She'd gotten her soundbite. The interview continued for another hour. Nathan played the devoted husband with unsettling skill, and Emma discovered she could match his performance when necessary. By the time Rachel packed up her recorder, she was practically glowing. This is exactly the kind of love story our readers dream about, Rachel said. The issue comes out next week. I think you'll be very pleased. The moment Rachel and her photographer left, Nathan dropped Emma's hand like it burned him. Well done, he said flatly. You're a better actress than I expected. Before Emma could respond, the doorbell rang. Marcus appeared moments later, and he wasn't alone. Victoria Ashford swept into the penthouse like she owned it, her expression unreadable. Victoria, Nathan said, tension immediately filling his voice. This is unexpected. Is it? After the lovely message I sent Emma last night? Victoria's smile was razor sharp. I thought we should have that chat, all three of us. Emma's heart hammered. This was it. Victoria was going to expose them. I know what you're doing, Victoria said, settling elegantly onto the sofa where Emma and Nathan had just performed their fake love story. I know this marriage is a fraud. The words dropped like bombs. Emma felt the floor disappear beneath her. That's a serious accusation, Nathan said, his voice deadly calm. Do you have proof? I don't need proof. I know you, Nathan. I know you don't fall in love in 3 weeks. I know you well enough to recognize a business transaction when I see one. Victoria's eyes moved to Emma. And I know desperation when I see it too. What's your price, Emma? What did he offer you to play this role? Emma opened her mouth, but no words came out. Here's what I think happened, Victoria continued. Nathan needed a wife quickly to satisfy his father's will. You needed money for something. Medical bills probably, given how thoroughly he would have investigated you. So you made a deal. 6 months of marriage, then a quiet divorce, and a large payout. The accuracy was chilling. The question is, Victoria said, what am I going to do about it? Nathan's jaw tightened. What do you want, Victoria? Want? Victoria laughed. Nothing. I'm not here to blackmail you, Nathan. I'm here to help. The words made no sense. Emma stared at her in confusion. I was the one who challenged the will, Victoria said calmly. I filed the complaint about your fraudulent marriage. Emma felt like she'd been punched. Why would you help us if you're the one trying to destroy? Because I'm withdrawing the challenge, Victoria interrupted. This morning. Completely and permanently. Nathan stood abruptly. Explain. Now. Victoria's expression softened in a way Emma hadn't expected. Because I spent the last 3 days watching you two, and I realized something. Yes, this started as a transaction. But Emma? She looked directly at her. The way you defended yourself at the reception, the way you stood up to me when most people cower. You're not some gold digger playing a role. You're someone real who ended up in an impossible situation and made a hard choice. She turned to Nathan. And you. I've known you for years, Nathan. I've seen you with dozens of women who would have married you for your money in a heartbeat. But I've never seen you look at someone the way you looked at Emma during that interview. Even when you think no one's watching. I don't, Nathan started. Stop, Victoria cut him off. I'm not blind. Maybe this marriage started as a business deal, but somewhere between the contract and the ceremony, something shifted. Maybe you don't see it yet, but I do. Emma's mind was reeling. Why withdraw the challenge? Why help us? Victoria stood, smoothing her dress. Because my engagement to Nathan was exactly what yours is, a business arrangement. The difference is I found someone who made me want something real. Someone who saw me as more than a trophy or a merger opportunity. Her voice softened. Everyone deserves that chance. Even Nathan, despite being an insufferable businessman who treats people like chess pieces. She walked to the door, then paused. My challenge to the will is withdrawn. Your marriage stands, legally uncontested. What you do with that, whether you keep playing this game for 6 months, or actually try to build something real, that's up to you. Victoria left, and the silence she left behind was deafening. Emma sank onto the sofa, her mind struggling to process what just happened. She withdrew the challenge. We're safe? Apparently. Nathan's voice was strange, uncertain in a way Emma had never heard. Why did she say you looked at me differently? Emma asked quietly. Nathan didn't answer immediately. He walked to the windows, staring out at the city. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. My father's will didn't just require me to be married. It required me to be married to someone of genuine character and compassion. His exact words. He knew I would try to game the system, so he added that clause. I needed someone real, not another Victoria. He turned to face Emma, and for the first time, there was vulnerability in his eyes. I chose you because you were desperate enough to say yes, but real enough to satisfy the will's requirements. I thought I could control this, keep it purely transactional. He laughed bitterly. But watching you at that interview, the way you talked about value that has nothing to do with money, you actually meant it. You weren't acting. No, Emma admitted. I wasn't. You paid your mother's medical bills before you bought anything for yourself. You lied to her not to hide your shame, but to protect her from worry. You stood up to Victoria when you had every reason to be intimidated. You're not playing a role, Emma. You're just being who you actually are. Nathan moved closer, and Emma could see genuine emotion in his expression for the first time since they'd met. I've spent my whole life measuring people's worth in dollars and deals, he said quietly. But you can't be measured that way, and that terrifies me, because I don't know how to value something that can't be quantified. Emma stood, her heart pounding. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe some things aren't supposed to be measured or controlled or turned into transactions. I don't know how to do this any other way, Nathan admitted. Then learn, Emma said simply. You have 6 months. Use them to figure out what actually matters. Nathan looked at her for a long moment. What if I've already started? Before Emma could respond, his phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Nathan answered, listened, and his expression shifted to something Emma couldn't quite read. Understood. Thank you, Marcus. He ended the call and looked at Emma. Victoria's challenge is officially withdrawn. The will stands unchallenged. We're legally secure. So it's over? We just continue the arrangement? That's what the contract says. Nathan moved closer. 6 months of playing married, then you get your money and your freedom. And what do you get? Emma asked. My inheritance, my company, everything my father built. Is that what you want? The question hung between them like a challenge. Nathan reached out slowly, giving Emma every chance to pull away, and took her hand. This time his touch was warm. A week ago, I would have said yes without hesitation, he said quietly. Now, I'm not sure anymore. Emma's breath caught. What changed? You stood in a chapel and made vows you didn't mean to a man who treated you terribly. But you kept your word. You faced scrutiny, judgment, and threats, and you haven't broken. You're stronger than anyone I've ever known, Emma. And I'm beginning to realize that strength is worth more than anything in my father's will. Nathan, I'm not asking you to fall in love with me, he interrupted gently. I'm not even asking you to forgive how I've treated you. I'm just asking for a real chance. 6 months to see if this arrangement could become something genuine. Emma looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't seen before. Hope. Fragile, uncertain, but real. I can't promise anything, she said honestly. Neither can I. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the best things can't be guaranteed in contracts. Emma thought about her mother, about the lies she'd told, about standing in that chapel believing she was selling 6 months of her life. She thought about Victoria's words, that everyone deserves a chance at something real. Okay, Emma said finally. 6 months, but not as employer and employee, as two people trying to figure out if there's something worth building here. Nathan's smile was small, but genuine. I can work with that. 3 months later, Emma stood in that same penthouse, but everything had changed. Nathan had started joining her for breakfast instead of disappearing into his office. They'd visited her mother together, and Nathan had sat beside Sarah's hospital bed, listening to stories about Emma's childhood with genuine interest. He'd arranged for the best specialists, not as a transaction, but because he'd come to care about the woman who raised Emma. The magazine feature had run, and the public embraced their love story. But somewhere along the way, the performance had stopped being entirely fake. Emma stood at the windows now, watching the sunset paint the city in gold, when Nathan's arms wrapped around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, his voice warm against her ear. "About how 3 months ago I stood here feeling trapped. And now, Emma turned in his arms. Now I'm standing here with someone who sees me, really sees me. Not despite where I came from, but including all of it. You taught me that," Nathan said softly. "You taught me that value isn't something you can buy or measure. It's something you recognize when you stop trying to control everything." "And what have you recognized?" Nathan smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "That I'd rather be married to you than be the richest man in the world. That being vulnerable is harder than any business deal I've ever negotiated. And that I'm falling in love with my own wife, which was definitely not in the contract." Emma's heart soared. Definitely breach of contract. "Sue me," Nathan whispered, then kissed her with a tenderness that proved everything had changed. When they pulled apart, Emma rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. 3 months left," she said quietly. "Then the contract ends. Then we write a new one," Nathan replied. "One that has nothing to do with money or obligations. One that's just about two people who found something real in the middle of a transaction." Emma looked up at him, seeing the man he'd become, the one who'd learned that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in connection, compassion, and the courage to change. "I think," Emma said, "that sounds like the best contract I've ever heard." As the sun set over the city, Emma realized that she'd walked into that chapel months ago believing she was sacrificing herself to save her mother. But she'd actually saved something else entirely, a man who'd forgotten how to see value in anything that couldn't be bought, and in doing so, she discovered her own worth. The contract had given them 6 months, but what they'd built would last a lifetime.
She walked into the ceremony convinced it was all a joke, a stage wedding meant for show, a favor to a millionaire who treated everything like a game. The decorations were too perfect, the guests too polished, the atmosphere too grand to be real. She kept waiting for someone to shout surprise and reveal the truth, but when the music quieted and he leaned close, his whisper froze her in place. Nothing will be canceled. His tone held no hint of playfulness. In that moment, she realized the vows, the crowd, the ring, every detail was real. The man she thought was only pretending had orchestrated an entire future without her knowing, not out of deceit, but because he refused to let her slip away. And as the weight of his words settled, the fake wedding she feared became the beginning of a life neither of them could deny.